Welcome to week 14. I hope you are staying safe in all this smoke. Take good care of your family and your lungs. Eat good healthy food together. That'll help.
Say a prayer for the people who are in the fire.
Yes, that's what Ken says, and I agree. Say a prayer for all the folks who are caught in these fires. Ditto! This week we have eggplant. I'm so very excited. Look at these lovely Japanese eggplants. There's a recipe up on the site. I make it annually, and it requires eggplant and tomatoes. You can even put some of these mini sweet bells in there if you want to. It's called Zingy Eggplant Relish, I think. Ken will post it. But it's one of those things you can make this week, cool it off in a glass 9x13, then store it in an old peanut butter jar or a glass jar, and next December, when you want the taste of summer, pull this out, and you will be amazed at the flavor. Another kohlrabi, that's great crunch. We sure enjoyed ours last week.
Runaways.
Runaway apples. Oh, and we bruised them. That's not good.
I'll have to eat them quick.
I know.
Yes, you will.
And Ken has no problem with that because they're so good. We've got lettuce coming out of the field. Look at this gorgeous broccoli. And look at this gem. We've got a cantaloupe. I can't wait. A little squeeze of lime. That's going to be heaven. I'm back. We've got carrots as well, and those are going to go in a casserole we're going to make this week. So I love this time of year. We've got cabbage. Now, none in the box this week, but I will bet anything. Some of you have part of a cabbage head left over from the week before or weeks before. And if you do, this casserole is really kid-friendly. You cook the cabbage so it's soft. You can either put winter cabbage or winter squash or carrots diced up in it, and we'll show you how to infuse the cream sauce, the bechamel, with sage leaves, which makes it really nummy. So we'll show you how to do that today. We've got onions and more zucchini, and those might also be nice in the casserole if you wanted to chunk those up. But we're going to have corn on the cob. I was starting to tell you about our corn soup last week. I prepped the vegetable peppers and onions and fresh corn off the cob, sauteed that all till the corn began to caramelize a little bit, and then I stashed it in the fridge because we had a very busy week. We didn't actually make the corn soup until Saturday night, last night. And Ken, what do you think? Was it as good as fresh?
Big thumbs up.
Thumbs up. So we were in good shape. So if you need to stall those fresh ears of corn for something that tastes just as fresh a few days later, if you cook it just a little bit, you get away with that. Otherwise, if you're getting fresh ears of corn in your box, eat them the day you get them, because that's their great treasure in their seasonality. I'm just trying to see if I missed anything. We have, these look like sweet baby bells. I took a little bite to taste to make sure, and they are. And a few tomatoes for some of you. So we've got lots of good makings. So we'll get started. We'll meet Mimi out on the front porch.
A bunch of breadcrumbs that I just chopped up, some leftover bread. So I just made little chunks. I'm going to just put it straight onto a cookie sheet. And then I'm going to pour on some, okay, so this is actually some olive oil that I took one of our beautiful garlics from the farm and chopped it up really fine, and I put it in the olive oil. You don't have to directly do this, but what I like to do is I keep a bowl of this on my counter because now I'll have garlic oil for whatever I want for the next few days. So this is just one of those little things I like to do. And then we're going to just pour on the olive oil. I'll put a little bit of the garlic in there. See, and then like this, you can even just add more oil to it. And then just do a little toss. Don't let the escapees get away from you. And then from here, all I'm going to do is I have some thyme, but you can use oregano, Italian seasoning, whatever you like, marjoram, some rosemary out of your garden maybe. And then here's a little bit of salt. And then we're going to put up some pepper. And again, this is up to what you like. Depending on the like for this time of year, I would even put some really finely chopped sage in there. And then you have breadcrumbs, obviously for salads, but it's wonderful on top of casseroles or soups. It's just delightful, and that's all there is to it. And now it's just going to get spread out a little bit. It's going to go in the oven at 375 or so and bake until it's nice and toasty and crisp, and we're done. So for our casserole, we've got some cabbage, which everyone probably still has in their refrigerator. So I'm just doing a very coarse like shred, and so it doesn't have to be super fine. And you just slice it up. I'm going to do a cross cut just so it's a little easier to eat. And as you can see, we're going to have a lovely big pile. And so if you even chop up too much, it's not a big deal. You've got coleslaw or something to make some cabbage rolls or something with. And just chop that up. And ta-da, you've got a big pile of yum yum. So here I have our beautiful carrots from the farm, of course, just picked. And what I'm doing, as you're seeing, is I'm putting them kind of just in long pieces. They don't have to be super perfect. This is home cooking, not a restaurant. Then I stack them like that, and I'm going to put them in small chunks. The reason why I'm doing that is because carrots are going to take longer to cook than the cabbage. So that's why I'm doing this small. If you want them big, go ahead, just cook the carrots longer before you add your cabbage.
Hey everyone, I had to go get Ken and bring him in the kitchen while he and Mimi were telling stories about her great-grandmother. We have the onion sauteing in butter. I use butter when I make a bechamel. So Ken, can you get a picture of that? It's a fairly coarse dice on the onions, and I'm going to cook those until they're really soft because I don't want kids to encounter them in the casserole and even notice them. And then I'll just sweeten the flavor anyway. This is the water just about ready to boil, and that's what we're going to put the carrots and the cabbage in and boil them for 5 minutes. It will be salted. And then this, oops, is hot. This is my simmering milk, and it's being infused with the sage. So I've got it on a very low temperature, and we just want to take that fresh sage. You could even afford to put more sage in there if you wanted to. And just let it steep. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat off because my range is pretty hot right now, and just let that steep. So that's where we are so far in the casserole assembly. So the water's boiling, and we're going to put the carrots in and put the timer on for about 2 minutes. And then we'll add the cabbage because I want to give the carrots a little more time. We've got lots of timers going here. Which one can I use? So we'll get that. We'll let them go for 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll put the cabbage in and finish it off. If you look closely, you can see that the carrots are beginning to infuse their flavor into that water. And remember what we've been learning this summer from our book, The Everlasting Meal from Tamar. This kind of water with the carrot and the cabbage cooked would be a great starter for, say, a cabbage soup or any kind of vegetable soup for the fall. So this may be water you want to save. So cabbage is a strong flavor, so you probably want that to be a component in your soup or some relative of cabbage. But we'll get that in there, and we'll bring that to boil and cook that for about 4.5 to 5 minutes, and then we will let it cool just a little bit, and we'll be ready to assemble the casserole. So because I want to save the liquid that the cabbage and carrots have cooked in, remember it's already salted, this can be the beginnings of another soup if you'd like. I'm going to use my screen to scoop the vegetables out. If you're not planning on saving the water, then just put a colander in the sink and dump it out. But I'm going to save the liquid as a starter for something else. And that was the timer going off. And so if I end up with a little extra liquid in the casserole dish, I'll just pour it off. But that way I can save that cooking liquid. And we will have saved the nutrition and the flavor for something that will create another meal. So you can see what the onions look like. There's just a scat 1/8 teaspoon of nutmeg in there. I like to put that in my bechamel. And then I'm making the full recipe. We'll have leftover bechamel. I just wanted you to see what it looked like. So this is a 2 tablespoon scoop, and we need 4 tablespoons, or a 1/4 cup. It's the same thing. And now we'll work that flour in. Now here's the important part. You need to make sure that that flour cooks for a good 5 or 6 minutes in this onion butter mixture. Otherwise, you'll have that nasty floury taste on your tongue when you go to make the cream sauce.
Is this a medium heat?
It is low on my oven, but medium on most stoves. Thanks for asking, Ken. So we'll give that 5 or 6 minutes and make sure that flour is well cooked. And then we will pour in the milk that's been infused with the sage. I will remove the sage leaves before I put it in, though. It'll make it easier to deal with. So we are about 2 minutes into cooking the roux. You can see it looks a little different, doesn't it? But we want to make sure all that flour has been encapsulated in the fat, whether it's olive oil or butter, your choice. And then make sure it's thoroughly toasted, and it is not yet. You don't want to brown it, just want to get it cooked. So I play with it. This burner cooks a little hot, so you may have gentler heat available to you on your cooktop. Well, Ken was late to the party. We have the roux. I poured the warm milk in. After the flour had cooked well in the fat of the roux, which was butter in this case, and I went ahead and just sauteed the onion in it. I didn't keep it separate. I just did it all in one pan, as you saw.
And you poured the milk through a strainer to get rid of the sage leaf.
I was pulling the sage out. That's what we infused. There we go. Now, what we haven't brought up in this whole conversation is the fact that this has cheese in it. And Swiss cheese to honor Mimi's family's recipe. So I'm going to get something other than a whisk. I think that's plenty. We'll put a little on top.
And this is the same method for making good macaroni and cheese,
That's right. This could turn into macaroni and cheese if you wanted it to. None of that boxed chemical stuff. But you can see, I mean, it's a recipe from the prairie where they were farming wheat and working hard, so they weren't afraid of a lot of calories. And for us, it's a celebration of Mimi's family and a treat. Good. So I'm going to take this off and pour it on top of the casserole over here. Now remember, this is enough sauce for a 9 by 13, so I'm probably not going to put all of this in there. We'll hold it back for something else. We'll just kind of stir it in. And then Mimi has homemade breadcrumbs infused with all kinds of lovely flavors that she will finish the casserole off with, and then we'll bake it. And really celebrate those late summer, early fall flavors. There we go. Let's take it outside and get its bread topping on, and then we'll pop it in the oven. Okay, so here's our cubed bread here, our croutons. I'm just going to crush them up because they're a little big, and I'm just using a rolling pin. You can whack it if you want, but I'm just going to give it a little roll here, and you will see how it starts to break down like that. And you can just store them now in this plastic bag, or just leave them as croutons if you want to use them in another form.
Like snacking.
Like snacking.
That's where most of them go. I must admit.
And then
we're just going to take a handful. You don't have to do this. You can leave it like that with just some cheese on top. And I'm just going to sprinkle some on top.
That's perfect.
And then in the oven it goes!
For about a half an hour until it's nice and bubbly. If the breadcrumbs brown a little more than I want them to, I'm going to pop some foil on it. So
Yes.
we'll give it a start.
There we go.
Look what came out of the oven. Doesn't that look glorious? So here are the homemade breadcrumbs Mimi taught you how to make. And then if you can hear the bubbling. Doesn't that look yummy? Mm-hmm. That's essentially macaroni and cheese without the macaroni and vegetables instead, guys. We'll meet you out on the porch. Hey everyone, welcome back to the kitchen. It's Monday morning and I wanted to show a little bit about the method of making the zingy eggplant relish if you think that might please your palate this coming winter. This is what it looks like when it's cooked. This is the cooked portion of the relish. And it's got two of those long Japanese eggplants, one big, very overripe, meaty tomato that I diced up skin and all, and then 2 onions. It has thyme and garlic and lots of olive oil. And then I'm going to round up about 3 pounds of fresh tomatoes and dice those, fold that into this once it's cooled, and then pour a marinade over it. And this is 1 cup of vinegar. I have in here 1 cup of red wine vinegar and half a cup of red wine vinegar and a half a cup of raspberry vinegar I made last winter. I was just looking for a little sweet. It has honey in it. It also has molasses, and that's what gives it that rich brown. This is what's going to preserve it for the winter. Now, I thought explaining a few things would be helpful to those of you who are not familiar with cooking with tomatoes to get the most amount of flavor. When I talk about flashing tomatoes, I would encourage you to use a stainless steel pan. Don't use your cast iron for anything acidic or you'll take the patina off of it as fast as you can say boo. But I put a heavy 2/3 cup of olive oil in here, heated it up, pan was already hot, and then took my diced tomatoes in that hot oil and flashed them off. And I didn't turn down the heat, I kept it high and I just kept cooking it. You'll bring the sugars forward in the tomato and you'll get more than just a boiled tomato flavor. This is the pan I use for all the sauteing, getting the brown on the eggplant. A little trick on the eggplant, when it says sweat your eggplant, that means you've cubed it, skin and all, cubed it into about 1/2-inch cubes, put it in a colander in the sink, put about a heavy teaspoon and a half of salt on it, roll it around. Don't worry about that, it's going to be salt in your, that'll be part of the recipe. But what you're doing is releasing some of the moisture from the eggplant. Don't worry about it being bitter. I doubt that this would ever be bitter. But it's just removing some of the moisture so when you go to pan fry it and get a little bit of golden on it, it doesn't drop the temperature with a lot of water releasing. So you get a better flavor, you get a sweeter flavor of the vegetable. So there's just a couple of tricks that I use when I'm making that, and I thought I would point out not to put acids in your cast iron if you want to take good care of it and have a good patina on it when you go to use it next time. So we'll have Ken take a picture of the finished product once I round up those 3 pounds of tomatoes. Welcome to our little slice of heaven. We just wanted to say goodbye and have a great week and take care of your neighbors. Amen. Bye everybody.
She met my dad actually in Canada. He was just out of the service.
And this was your mom. She was number what of
She was right in the middle somewhere. I don't
13 kids?
Yeah.
And they all lived on the farm outside of Ogama?
Well, as they grew up, only 2 stayed farmers. They all had from 2 to 9 children.
Oh my gosh.
So there's hundreds of. Her last name was Gini, G-E-I-N-I.
That's Romanian spelling, or is
That's Romanian. That's the only spelling. You know, my mom, we could never get her to talk about her childhood. I loved my one uncle's farm because he had lots of horses. Oh, cheese. But don't forget the cheese.